When I walked into federal prison through a series of doors that took me through that double razor wire fence, they sent me straight into quarantine, straight into solitary confinement. I was locked in a cage smaller than my bathroom at home. And when that door shut, that finality to it, that deadbolt locking in place, in that moment, I was given an opportunity. I spent 22 days in that cage. The universal law of polarity, the yin and the yang, the good and the bad in any situation. I was given an opportunity to step up or to be consumed. We get to choose good or bad. Nothing is either one or the other. We are either pulled by the universe or we are pushed. I was pushed into that cage. And I learned that when that universe pushes, it's because we need that push. We are being tested. We are being given a defining moment where we either step up and become the person that we're supposed to be, or we turn into the victim. We play the poor me role. I don't deserve this. This wasn't supposed to happen. Why is this happening to me? We do this because we fail to realize that our environment, our lives, this place that we're in right now is just a mirror of what is in here. That's all it is. And so in that moment, I had a choice. I had to look inside of myself. I had to dig deep. I had to face me. I had to face the things I never wanted to face. And so while I lived in that box, I read. And after every single chapter, I would do 50 push-ups, 50 air squats, burpees, walk back and forth. I had to elevate my energy. I had to bring myself up because I was in the darkest hole I'd ever been. I wrote every single day, multiple times per day. I documented my journey. I documented my progression from that first day through that 22nd day. And then I kept going, and I'm still doing it today. But to write, I had a broken pencil. It was this big. I sharpened it on that steel bunk. I'll never forget that steel bunk. I had nothing to write on. I had a few books. Those books were strewn underneath that steel frame bed, covers ripped, pages missing. And that reading was my escape. So I didn't want to write all over it. Instead, I was given a prison manual, all the rules of what we must do and what we must obey while we were there. And so I wrote on the back of it. And when I wrote out a room on the back, I wrote in the margins. I wrote on the top. I wrote on the bottom. I got my thoughts on paper. I tried to find a sense of clarity that I had been missing in my life. But perhaps the most important and impactful thing that I did to elevate myself, to pick myself up in that dark moment, the yin and the yang, the good and the bad. I woke up early every single day and I watched that sun come up through a window, maybe this big, with two horizontal bars going through it. And in that moment, in that dark, sweaty, hot, unair-conditioned cell, watching that sun come up over the building next to me, next to this big, beautiful, mature tree that I got to look at every day, that moment was the highlight of my day. I could not wait to go to sleep so that I could see that sun come up the next day, knowing that I'm one day closer to getting through. And now I tell people what I learned then, that watching the sun come up makes me feel like I'm staring God in the face. That first light, that first glimmer of that sunshine in the morning, it's a special experience. And to this day, every single day, I get to greet God every single morning. And I get to remind the universe that I beat the sun to the starting line. And I don't know if there's a God in the traditional sense. Is there a universal energy that we don't fully understand? I think so, probably. And over the coming weeks, as my body began to detoxify and my mind began to clarify from all of the alcohol that I drank, all of the self-medicating I did leading up until that moment where I surrendered and I walked through those razor wire fences, the clarity that I gained only began to grow over time. And as I sat in that cell, and I thought and I read and I worked and I wrote, it became more and more clear what I was meant to do with myself and my life. I was now being pulled instead of being pushed. And I learned that I had the strength within me to endure this as long as I needed to. I had reached a state of inner peace and acceptance that I'd never felt before in my life. I was moving along that path. And when they finally let me out of that cage 22 days later, and I stepped onto the yard for the first time, it wasn't a fenced-in walking path to me. To me, this was a walk in the countryside. I was on a morning hike, beautiful, bright green trees all around the facility, rolling hills, birds chirping, geese flying overhead. This was heaven to me. And after that, I never looked at the world the same way. Instead of looking at being on the wrong side of a razor wire fence, I began to see the beauty in the darkness, the yin and the yang, that universal polarity, and feel grateful that I had the opportunity to wake up and smell that fresh morning air. And so when I chose to stop pushing against the universe and allow myself to be pulled, my life changed, and my life changed for the better. And as I continue to invest in this process, and I have done so for years now, I can feel it. I can feel myself moving in a direction fearlessly. In my life prior to that, I lied to myself. I lied to myself for a long time. I wore the suit. I played the private equity guy. I played CFO. I built companies. I bought companies. I sold companies. But today I know that I am meant for something more. I'm a servant. I'm a teacher. I'm here to share my experiences, my mistakes openly, my most embarrassing of failures. To share those lessons is what is driving me. It's pulling me to become the best version of myself. And so while I was incarcerated, I was in a negative environment. Prison is really a microcosm of life in that there's maybe 10% of people who are positive, trying to do better, and everybody else is being consumed by the negative. That universal polarity is pushing them instead of being pulled. And so I tried to lift the energy in that place. I dedicated myself to service while I was away. I taught workshops 2 or 3 times per week. I would read, I would study, and I would share that information in those workshops with the people around me. I taught things like entrepreneurship, investing, mindset, financial literacy, building a transition plan, resume writing, job finding. I taught men things that I believed would help benefit them when this negative part of their life came to an end, and that they had the opportunity to start fresh on the outside. I tried to light them up. I taught grown men how to read. I volunteered in the GED department so that men would have an education to lean on when they left. I became a leader in my community. Me, I've never been to prison. I've never been in handcuffs even. I treated everyone with the same level of respect that I wanted to have for myself. I tried to light people up in this negative, dark place. And that is why I'm doing this. I'm just being pulled. There's something that is just taking me in this direction. And so I'm moving fearlessly along this path. And I would argue that there's something inside of you. There's a pull. You can feel it in your gut. You know it, but you're ignoring it. It's trying to lead you to your highest potential. And you have to move fearlessly in that direction. And you have to put in the work to try to achieve that high potential that's within you. Don't ignore it. And so maybe you've already been pushed by the universe. You're facing financial ruin. You're facing bankruptcy. You're having a relationship issue. You're facing divorce. Those relationship issues could be family, friends, environment. You feel lost. You have no hope. This is because you've been ignoring that universal pull inside of you, and you are unwilling and have chosen not to do the work. You're not a victim. Being a victim is a choice. That adversity can be your greatest gift. It can become your defining moment, or it can kill you. And while I was in quarantine for the 3rd time, locked in that cell again, the man in the cell next to me attempted to commit suicide. He slit his wrist with a razor blade, blood all over the place, cops everywhere. He cracked. The universe was pulling, he pushed, and he might have lost his life in the process. I never saw him again. I don't know what happened to him. And so right now, you might be facing that defining moment. And so what will you choose? Will you push, or will you allow yourself to be pulled? That choice is up to you.